Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining me for another YouTube Live. I'm Dr. Anthony Chaffee, and I have about an hour today, so we'll be able to answer as many questions as we can. I just want to say thank you to my friend Chris Brandlin, who goes by the Carnivore Lawyer. He's been helping me out with some issues such as patenting my videos and also suing people that are defaming me and saying that I'm not a doctor and things like that, like Lane Norton and Allo, Dr. Muhammad Allo, who tried to sort of replicate and regurgitate the nonsense that Dr. Ids was going around saying that I wasn't a doctor. And he said specifically I wasn't an MD, even though my degree is exactly the same as an MD. And what people took that to mean was that I wasn't a medical doctor, but he said specifically that I was falsifying my credentials. And so people took that to mean that, I'm not a medical doctor and things like that. I'll be releasing a video just going over some of these things. But I'm in the process of suing Dr. Ids, and I've sent letters of cease and desist letters to Lane Norton and Dr. Allo. And if they do these things again, then I will be suing them. And Chris has been kind enough to help me with those sorts of things. If people need help, he likes to help out people in the carnivore community for free as much as he can by going to brandlinlaw.com. So BRANDLIN law.com. And it is kind of funny that Ids was saying these things about me, because it's come to light that he actually only graduated medical school in 2021 and only finished his intern year in December 2022, and hasn't had a medical license in the UK since 2023. He calls himself a board certified specialist, which he says he's board certified in lifestyle medicine. Funny thing is, they don't have a board certification in lifestyle medicine, so that's interesting. It's a certificate. It's like an online course that is estimated to take 20 to 40 hours. And he's calling himself board certified in lifestyle medicine. And of course, that's not true. What a board certification is you've completed a multi-year residency training program and specialty and been tested on this, and you have board certification. So people go around, I'm a board certified OBGYN, I'm a board certified blah, 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 blah. And he's saying he's board certified in lifestyle medicine. And there's no such thing. The lifestyle medicine people don't offer a board certification. It's just a certificate. And when I say, well, it's a diploma, but it's not even a diploma from a university. They just call it a diploma, but it's not actually a real diploma either. It's just a certificate. And so he's going around falsifying his credentials and then accusing actual practicing doctors of falsifying theirs. But yeah, he's not a practicing physician. He doesn't have an active medical license in the UK. He's not a registered dietitian or nutritionist in the UK. And it doesn't appear that he's ever practiced medicine past his internship. He's just been, he's not really a practicing physician. He just plays one on TV, and that's probably why he wears the scrubs and the stethoscope in his videos, even though he's not even working in the hospital. He doesn't even see patients, and which makes sense, because the only people that walk around with their stethoscopes on are the interns, because they want everyone to know that they're a doctor. And so that makes sense that he's going around doing videos with the stethoscope on, which is very, very funny. But it's projection, really. He's saying that I'm falsifying my credentials when he really, truly is trying to say that he's a board certified specialist when that doesn't exist. That's not a specialty, and he's not even a practicing physician. So Chris has been kind enough to help me with that. And and then I have my legal team in the UK as well. So I think that's interesting anyway. So in any case, thank you to Chris. And if people want to check out his website, then go to brandlinlaw.com. Also want to let people know that I'll be in Manchester next month on the weekend of October. Well, this month, Jesus. So I'll be leaving pretty much next week. So like the weekend of the 18th, I think it's on the 19th. will be doing the Keto Brain Health Conference in Manchester. I think there are still tickets available to that, so you can go to just Google Keto Brain Health. I have some posts and things like that on my Instagram that people can find. But it's also, you can find that on Instagram. The Keto Brain Health have their own page and website and things like that. So you can go and check that out. And there you go. It's on there, ketobrainhealth.co.uk. And then directly after that, so that following week, from the 21st to the 25th, I'll be in Spain, just outside of Malaga, where we'll have a conference there for it's like a carnivore conference, and I'll be there. Sophia Clemens will be there. Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride from the Gap site was going to be there. Unfortunately, she had something else, and she can't make it to this conference as well, unfortunately. But I think she might Zoom in for something, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But that one's going to be really interesting. There were a couple last minute cancellations, so there is, I think, a room or two available. It's 5 days, so not everybody can make that commitment, but it's at a really nice venue in the south of Spain. It looks really nice anyway, and apparently they've had conferences there before and really enjoyed them. And that is, if you go to thebigfatchallenge.com, you can find out more about that if you want. I think there's only like 1 or 2 rooms available, but if someone wanted to have the time and wanted to check that out, they can go do that. Okay, so there was a couple super chats from last week that I seem to have missed, and so we'll get to those first. This one was from James Manrique. Says, what diet would you suggest for someone who has only one kidney? The carnivore diet is high in animal protein that could put a lot of strain on the kidney. So the thing is that a lot of things in medicine are just on a best guess, and we just said, okay, well, protein gets broken down, and you have to take off the nitrogen group, and that ends up getting turned into urea, which has to pass through the kidneys. And so as urea levels go high, that could be that your kidneys are slowing down, but that's just a filtration process, right? That doesn't mean that the urea caused the kidney to slow down. But that was what they thought. Like, okay, well, maybe that slows it down. Okay, maybe avoid protein. And then people's kidneys started getting worse and worse and worse with the less protein that they consumed. So studies have actually been done now, and actually a long time ago. This isn't anything new, showing that actually higher protein diet actually improves kidney function. It doesn't actually make it worse. So more protein, more kidney function. And so the best diet for people with one kidney is the same diet that's the best for everybody. It's just whatever is biologically appropriate for our species, and that's really just a plant-free ketogenic diet, carnivore diet. So you're going to get a lot of protein, which is very good for you. It's very good for your kidney, and you're also going to be eliminating a lot of things that are nephrotoxic, meaning that they damage your kidneys, like oxalates. And so you're getting rid of all these things that damage the kidney, and you are allowing your body to heal, and you're getting the protein as substrate that's necessary. I mean, you need protein. Your body's made out of protein, and your body starts degrading and breaking down if you don't have enough protein to replace and rebuild your organs and tissue. And so we're seeing more and more people with CKD4, CKD5, even a few people improving on dialysis, starting to make more and more urine naturally. And a couple of people have been, 3 that I've seen, have been able to come off dialysis, and potentially more. Those are just the ones that I've seen, eating a much higher protein diet than the typical standard American diet. But it's not like it's an insane amount of protein. It's just more than we normally get. But most people are not even getting close to enough. I think it's like something like 80% of the world don't meet the minimum standards for protein consumption as per the UN. And the thing is that those protein standards, those are not like the goal. Those are the bare minimum. And like 80% of people in I think it's in developed nations maybe, but worldwide it's still pretty high, don't even meet that minimum requirement. So almost everybody can stand to increase their protein consumption, but it does not damage your kidneys, and it should help. If you want to get a more learned view than mine. I interviewed Professor Thomas Wimes from UC Santa Barbara, who studies the kidney and specifically polycystic kidney disease. And he's finding he's reversing this with, ketogenic diets in general, like plant-free ketogenic diets, like a carnivore diet is a ketogenic diet, right? And so he was all for the carnivore diet for kidney function. And, we talked a lot about that and at length. And so you can check that out as well. But yeah, it's not going to hurt your kidneys or your kidney. Mikey Cayenne or Sayan 8580 says carnivore for 1 year, a ton of benefits, settled in at optimal weight, BP normalized, down 30 points. But I've started developing xanthelasmas in the corner of my eye. Why they get ugly? That's a good question. Sometimes that's associated with like familial hypercholesterolemia, where you get extremely high levels of cholesterol, even more than you would typically get just eating a ketogenic carnivore diet. And remember that you just stop eating at all for several days, 5 days, your LDL is going to go up, your HDL is also going to go up, and your triglycerides are going to go down. That's the same pattern that we see when people go on a ketogenic diet as well, because it's really just it's a metabolic state change. You're just not running on carbohydrates, you're running on fat, so you need to transport fat around your body. And because your blood is largely made out of water, and fat repels water and water repels fat, it has to be carried in a special molecule called HDL and LDL. And so, of course, those things are going to have to go up because now you're transporting more fat around your body. So you're running on fat and your body has to transport fat. That's all there is to it. And so if you eat the exact same amount of meat and fatty meat, but you add in a whole bunch of carbs, come right down, because now you're not transporting all that fat around, right? And so we see this, this is demonstrable. As far as the xanthelasmas, that's pretty atypical. I've seen a couple people that have had that. It could be an underlying familial issue, like a genetic issue that would predispose you to get even higher levels of cholesterol. Those even higher levels of cholesterol are still not going to cause heart disease, because cholesterol does not cause heart disease. But some people that have familial hypercholesterolemia have other genetic predispositions that could increase the likelihood of cardiovascular disease. I'm not too sure what can help with the xanthelasma. If you check your cholesterol and everything like that, and you do have extremely high. I mean, there are people that just do a ketogenic diet and they find that their cholesterol is that of someone with familial hypercholesterolemia. I would probably be in that category. I haven't checked it in years because I don't care to, because I think it's a complete waste of time and money. But it's it would have been up in sort of that range, and a lot of people are. But a lot of those people with the same levels of cholesterol as familial hypercholesterolemia don't get the xanthelasmas. So there's probably something else going on, and it could be some sort of just genetic predisposition that you have that makes that more likely to form, possibly when you have higher levels of cholesterol, but possibly for some other reason as well. I'm not sure exactly. If you really want to add in some carbs and things like that and lower your cholesterol down and have that help, see if that helps your xanthelasma, you could do that. I mean, I think it would be at the expense of optimal health, but it's something you can try anyway and see how you feel and see how you do, as long as you're not having some mass quantities of carbs and getting insulin resistance and glycation sort of damage. But it's enough to just tamp this down. Maybe that's okay. But to me, I would pick the health side of things over it. And and again, this is not something that typically happens, even with people that get really high levels of cholesterol. So there's probably something else going on in your particular genetics, or maybe there's some other factor that's contributing to this as well. But it's rare enough that I've only seen that. You're probably like the second or third person I've seen that has gotten that. So I'm not exactly sure why that's happening. So, but play around with it. Maybe you can see what you can do to sort of manipulate that to get that down, but still maintain optimal health and good nutrition.
Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys.
Louis Pretorius says, "Hi, thanks for all you do. My wife recently started Carnivore, and just over a month in, she has fibromyalgia and it's just over a month in. She has fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. So far, symptoms have gotten worse. Any advice?" Well, certainly with the fatigue, that can be an issue early on when you're adapting, and you just need to get fat adapted, keto adapted, and that actually realistically takes months. But most people start feeling that their energy rise after several weeks, or usually after about a month. People are start feeling like they have more energy, but it can take more than that. There's some people that 3 months in, they're still feeling pretty low, and then their energy comes up. I've seen probably two or three people that after about 6 months, they're feeling pretty low energy and rotten for about 6 months, and then they had this takeoff. Anytime I see somebody struggling with energy or having sort of a slow burn, I always will check their blood work or suggest they check their blood work. My patients, I just check their blood work so I can see this all ahead of time and head it off at the pass. But if you're sort of struggling and it's a month in, it could just be, you're still adapting. Could be you're not drinking enough water. Could be you're not eating enough fat. That's a real hard one for a lot of people is actually getting enough fat, and that's where your energy comes from. And could also be, it matters how strict she is as well. A lot of people, when they go carnivore, they eat a lot more meat and they eat a lot less of the other things, which is great. It's a big step in the right direction, but there is a big difference between eating mostly meat and a bit of things and eating 100% fatty meat and water and getting enough of it. That it actually makes a massive, massive difference, especially if you're someone who's, very low energy and fibromyalgia and things like that. Fibromyalgia, I spoke to a pain specialist about this. I've been doing this for 20 plus years. And I spoke to another researcher on this. That seems to be a metabolic, right? So you have to fix your metabolic issues, and they have these pain issues. When you're in ketosis, your ketones go up. That suppresses inflammation, but also you're removing a lot of inflammatory products and fixing your metabolism. And so that tends to improve. But it also seems to be there's a very strong link between fibromyalgia and taurine. Taurine is an amino acid that we normally make, but not everybody necessarily makes enough of it. And when people are eating fiber, they may lose the taurine because taurine is made in the liver. It's expressed in the bile. And everyone goes, "Oh, bile is so bad. Because it's made out of cholesterol, we have to get rid of it to lower your cholesterol because it's just a waste product." It's not like your body's making this on purpose to meet specific demand. No, you have to clear it out and flush it out and get rid of it because it's toxic, all these toxins. No, that's not what bile is for. Bile is not a waste product that you're trying to get rid of. Your body works really hard to bring it back in fact. And we're trying to manipulate that and block that process. And fiber is one of the ways that people do that. And that's how you lower cholesterol with fiber, because it binds bile and removes it out. And then you have to use cholesterol to make more bile. And your body does not stop making bile. It needs bile, and it tries to recycle bile. It's that important. And so taurine gets made and expressed in the bile. And when you bind it with fiber or medications that can bind bile to lower the cholesterol, you lose the taurine. And so, people eating a high fiber diet can actually lose more of this taurine and develop fibromyalgia. So taurine also is in meat, of course, but it gets denatured when you cook meat. This is why cats have to have raw meat, or at least some raw meat, because they need taurine. That's an essential nutrient for them. But it's really good for us to have more taurine in your diet. There are plenty of studies that show that. And specifically for fibromyalgia, this is something you should look into. So cook, more rare meat, and to get the taurine, you can even take a taurine supplement. And I would check her bloods. I would check her blood work. You can even check for her taurine, see if she has adequate taurine levels. But I would also check things like B12, folate, RBC zinc, RBC magnesium, vitamin D, those sorts of things. Thyroid, she has chronic fatigue and really tired all the time. She could have a thyroid issue. 1 month in, I'm sure she's going to be getting more nutrients, but if she's super low on a lot of these things, it's going to take a long time. And so I think that a lot of these people that take 3 months, 6 months to start getting better energy, they probably have an underlying thyroid condition or a very, very deficient in nutrients like B12, which you don't have enough of that. You'll have horrible energy. The reference range, so many people are deficient in these things that the reference range have actually shifted left. And so, all of a sudden no one's deficient because everyone's deficient. So the reference ranges just show deficiency, but they say, oh, that's normal now because it's normal to be deficient. So you want to be on the high end of whatever reference range they have, or even above for most things, such as B12. You definitely want to be sort of above their range for B12 on almost every lab test, because all lab tests have different reference ranges, and that therein lies the problem. Like, these are not optimal reference ranges; these are just averages for that lab, and so that's not what you want to go by. So you check all these things. Make sure she's got good levels of thyroid on the better ends, the higher ends of T4 and T3, or at least middle to upper, and TSH being on the lower end. That's your thyroid stimulating hormone. So that the higher that is, the less functional your thyroid is. You really want that to be below 2.0. A lot of these ranges go to 4 or 5, but anything above 2.0 actually doubles your risk for developing thyroid cancer. So that's clearly not the way to go, and not an acceptable range. So I'll try all those. I have a video online on YouTube about being tired on a carnivore diet, and there's a couple of things to troubleshoot there as well. Main ones are you actually eating a carnivore diet, or are you just eating a lot of meat? If you're eating a lot of meat, go full 100% just meat and water. Eat enough fat. You want to get 1 to 2 grams of fat to every 1 gram of protein. You need to eat fatty meat until it stops tasting good. You need to get a lot of water. Almost everyone is under hydrated. Aim for 3 liters a day, and drink more if your body's telling you to. Proper sleep, stress, all these other sorts of things. Taurine, as we discussed, checking your blood work, and otherwise, there is keto adaptation, and it can just take time for your body to get to the point that it can, utilize the ketones effectively. So take a look at that. And little Ellie Melly has joined the chat. Hi, Ellie Melly. Nice to see you. And she says, hi, you look cute. That's a little joke that we have. It's like the Australian accent. You don't actually enunciate things. You don't actually enunciate your consonants. And so they say, oh, you look cute. Oh, it's cute. Oh, cute. And so instead of cute, and so yeah, that's our little joke. But yeah, you look cute too. All right. So Vagar, thank you very much for the super chat. 15 years with Crohn's. Why does my gastroenterologist recommend mainly plant-based, high fiber? I've been carnivore for 5 weeks and never felt better, because he just doesn't know. And that's the simple truth of it. We're told all the time that fiber and plants are just so good for you and so good for your gut. So he's a gastroenterologist. So obviously that's what he recommends to people. And because he's had the exact same results, every time, this is why they say, oh yeah, diet doesn't have anything to do with it, because put people on these like super healthy, high fiber diets, and it makes it worse, if anything. So obviously diet's not something that's going to fix this. It's just this preconceived notion that is based on nothing. I was saying earlier about, just how we misunderstand a lot of things. We just everything's sort of a best guess, and we guess about, eating more protein would damage your kidneys. It doesn't. and then we're saying like, ooh, fiber is good for your gut because someone said so. And we just repeated this 1,000 times. No, it's not. It's just that he doesn't know. And the problem is that you have this inbuilt hubris as a doctor, even going through medical school. The preconceived notions that you had, ooh, fiber is good for you. Now you have that stamp as you're a doctor or even a medical student, and whatever your thoughts were, whatever your prejudices were and your predilections, you just, now that's what that is, because I'm a medical student, I'm a doctor, so I know. But it didn't actually come from medical school. It didn't come from your studies. It didn't come from your personal experience and professional experience. It was just something you thought beforehand, and now because you're an expert, that's what that is. And people speak with extreme confidence. I've seen it so many times. I saw this phenomenon when I was in medical school, and I saw my colleagues and fellow students doing this, and I sort of caught myself doing it once. And I remember thinking in my head, I'm like, hold on a second. I mean, I never learned that in here, and I'm talking about it as if that was something that I was trained to think and understand. And I was just like, ooh, that's dangerous. That's a bad habit to get into. And so I stopped it. I stopped doing that. But I was able to notice that not everybody does. And so they don't even realize that they just have these preconceived notions, and it's just, oh no, that's what that is. And I'm a doctor, so I would know. Like, well, no, you don't, because it's not true. So same idea. Your gastroenterologist just doesn't know. Hasn't come across the literature. I mean, I got into it with some gastroenterologists here in Perth. And they're, oh, there's no evidence to show this. I'm like, yeah, there is. There's a ton of evidence. Like, where have you been? You're a specialist in this, and you don't even know about it. And I just went on Google Scholar and showed them, like, there's just laundry lists of studies with ketogenic diets, carb and fiber-free diets, and having this massive benefits for Crohn's disease. And the patients that were eating fiber and carbs, weren't able to stay in remission without medication at all for 0 months. Whereas people that avoided, cut out carbs and fiber with Crohn's disease without medication were able to stay in remission up to 51 months without medication, just by cutting out carbs and fiber. And the people that ate fiber did not stay in remission without medications. So it's in the literature. You just have to look for it. It's not spoon-fed in a residency program, because there's no money at the other side of it. There's money on the other side of medications. And so, your gastroenterologist will be very hard pressed to come up with any randomized controlled trials or experimental interventional trials showing that a high plant, high fiber diet is going to improve Crohn's disease, because it won't. But there are studies, interventional trials in humans, experimental data that we can show a cause and effect relationship from, showing that removing plants and fiber improves Crohn's disease. There's another one with elemental diet, with ketogenic elemental diet, which normally it's just the macros and micros that you need broken down into their elements. So you don't have to digest them and break them down. You just absorb them. Ketogenic is the key there. Those are typically designed for kids with epilepsy. And so that, just the nutrients you need, nothing else, and no carbs, was a better treatment for an acute flare-up of Crohn's than prednisone, steroids, right? So, that's what the data shows. And that's what and what is an elemental diet? What is just the nutrients you need with nothing else? It's a steak, right? So just not eating certain things was a better treatment for Crohn's disease than steroids, which is the gold standard, right? And just not eating carbs and fiber kept people in remission up to 51 months, versus the control, which didn't stay in remission at all without medication. So that means that there's something in the carbohydrates and the fiber themselves, or something that came along with them, is causing the Crohn's. So unfortunately, your gastroenterologist doesn't know. And so what you need to do is you just need to document what's going on. And you need to be like, hey, I'm doing this thing. There are hundreds of thousands of people around the world doing this for autoimmune issues, including Crohn's disease. And there's studies and things like that. If you go on, I have things on autoimmunity. I did a video on It's called Autoimmune Diseases, What They Don't Want You to Know. It's a quick video. It's like 16 minutes. It's one of my earlier ones. It's like the first one to go viral. And then my channel got shadow banned and throttled, and it just was going up, flatline. But it's grown since. But if you go to that one, those studies that I just mentioned are in the description, and I talk about them in that video, and I also have links for them. And there's way more. Just go on Google Scholar and just go Crohn's disease ketogenic diets. You'll find a ton of stuff. Yeah, you may have to search around with different key terms, but it was very easy for me to find a ton of literature on this. There's no data, there's no studies. Yeah, there's a ton of studies actually, and there's a lot of there's even more lived experience. So yeah, what you do is you just keep doing what you're doing. You never felt better. Why the hell would you go back to the other way? And when you go into full remission, which you will, especially if you're like strict lion diet, just red meat and water, you will not have Crohn's disease in the future if you just keep eating that way. The good thing about Crohn's is that it's so dramatic. When you have a flare up, it's just like you even have like a piece of chicken or some bacon, and that causes you to react. You're just like, not doing that again. You have bloody diarrhea for 3 days. You're like, absolutely not. Or you have a piece of fruit or some fiber, and it's just horrific. Your body's not gonna want to touch that stuff. And so it's a lot easier to stay strict, but that's how you do the best always. It's just red meat and water. And you're probably very close to remission of your symptoms at this point. And, in the next few weeks or a couple months, you will probably have clinical remission on biopsy. And so you do that and just say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what hundreds of thousands of other people are doing around the world. This actually is literature on this. This is something that you need to look into. You tell your gastroenterologist this, and you say, hey, what you're saying, whenever I eat plants, whenever I eat fiber, I get way worse. And in fact, these studies show that if you cut out fiber and carbs, you get better with Crohn's disease specifically. And it's like, this is something you need to look into, because this is what's going to help your patients. And if you give them other advice, it's going to hurt them. And, and so you could definitely change their mind, and that would be really important, because then they're going to disseminate that to other people, and you use yourself as an example and just say, if you don't think it's true, prove me wrong. Put other people on it, see what happens. And if no one else gets the same result, okay, well then it was just a fluke. It's just anecdotal. But if it keeps happening and keeps happening, keeps happening, there's something there that is worth investigating. And who knows? You could win a major medical award or a Nobel Prize for curing Crohn's disease by doing the big studies showing that this actually works. And you could get your name in lights as a result of this. Appeal to his better nature first, and appeal to his greed, and after that, and see where you go. But this is how a lot of doctors are coming around, is that they're seeing patients doing these things. They're seeing the results that you're getting, and they're like, okay, well, I need to look into this, because I was not expecting that result. Let me just check something here. 1 second, as a pop over. So hold on a second. There we go. Okay, great. Okay, so here's a question from AP, which is about alpha-gal syndrome and what causes it. Any cases of actual cures? How to be carnivore living with alpha-gal syndrome? Alpha-gal syndrome is basically a sensitization reaction to the saliva, whatever, of a tick, of the Lone Star tick, and that can make you sensitive to alpha-galactose, which is a carbohydrate that can be found on surface proteins of some meat, like red meat in particular. So it doesn't mean that you can't do carnivore. It just is unlucky, but there are plenty of meats available that don't have alpha-gal, won't trigger alpha-gal, but you have to avoid things like red meat. And so you can look that up. You can look up what meats have that and don't, and which ones you need to stick to. And you can just do that. I think chicken and fish are pretty good. Maybe eggs. Pretty sure, and don't quote me though. Look it up, but from what I've been told by other clinicians, because I've never treated alpha gal syndrome. I haven't seen anybody with it myself, but I have spoken to other clinicians who have, and they said that, there are other meats that you can eat. So you just do that. And apparently it wears off. Apparently it's like, after, 6 months to a year, it sort of wears off and you can start eating this stuff again. And there's always the weird, there's that weird dude that did a TED talk. I think it was a TED talk. And he was like a WEF guy. And he was saying like, oh yeah, we have to desperately cut out ruminant meat because it's just destroying the planet, which is not true, of course. And, but that's really hard to do. So, instead of just, waiting for people to make the right decision, what they feel is the right decision, we should, try to make it allergic and make you sick if you eat this stuff. And it's like, that's pure evil. I mean, that is Nazi level evil stuff. Manipulating people, and you don't get to manipulate people's bodies. You don't get to do that. It's in the Nuremberg Code. It's in the Constitution of the United States. You don't get to do that. People own themselves as a fundamentals of property rights is that you own your property, and the most important part is that you own yourself. You are your own property. No one else gets to do that. No one else gets to do anything to your body that you don't want them to at all for any reason. And they don't get to pressure you or threaten you or say you don't get to work, or you don't get to travel, you don't get to you don't get to do that. That is illegal. It's against the freaking Nuremberg Code. They said specifically in the Nuremberg Code that you cannot pressure people through duress to make them and manipulate them into doing something like this. And so back off. So, you can eat other meats, and even if it doesn't recover and you can never eat red meats again, it's a shame, but you can still do carnivore for the rest of your life, eating other sorts of meats as well that don't have alpha gal. So you can definitely still do that. And from what I'm told, it does get better, but I don't know that for sure, but that's just what I've been told, and hopefully that's the case.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor, Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys.
As Sai, thank you very much for the super chat. I'm 5'7", she's 5'5". Can the boy be over 6 foot if carnivore? Yeah, very, very possibly. It does depend on your genetics, also epigenetics. If you look at the Pottinger's cats, they fed them cooked meat and they got smaller and smaller and smaller. And then they started giving them, and they couldn't reproduce after the third generation, and really third generation. And but then they started feeding them raw meat. And, they're already done growing. They were adults, but they got a lot healthier and they could reproduce at that point. Then they had kids, but they didn't just go back to where they were before they started feeding them cooked meat. It took 4 generations before they got back and they bred back. So there are multi-generational epigenetic effects, but every generation was bigger and bigger and bigger. So yeah, you absolutely could have a kid over 6 feet tall. It will be certainly taller than both of you, but may not get over 6 feet tall. But I mean, look at these little, wizened Chinese people that were, lived through the Mao's famines and things like that, and while they're developing, and they're just 5 foot tall, tiny little thing, and then they come to America or another Western country, and they have access to food and meat, and like, oh, thank God, and their kids get everything that they need. And you have this 6'4" kid. I mean, I played rugby with a kid that was in that state. He was 6'4", well muscled. He was like into bodybuilding in high school, and his parents were tiny, just tiny little things, And so, yeah, it can definitely. I don't know if they'll get over 6 feet tall, but I'm very very confident that they'll be taller than you anyway, probably significantly taller and probably well over 6 feet. Yeah. And if he's carnivore his whole life and he gets a wife that's carnivore for a lot of her life, hopefully most of her life or all of her life, that could happen now in the future. Their kids will be even taller, and their kids will be even taller, but both mom and dad play a role in that. But yeah, you definitely very good likelihood of being over 6 feet tall. Okay, here's a question from Dr. Fananzapar or Fanan Pazir. Ooh, sorry, buddy. I think I butchered that. But welcome. He says, I am a pediatrician who had diabetes, now with normal hemoglobin A1C after 4 months on a carnivore. I feel amazing, and I'm trying to decide how to let this knowledge affect my pediatric practice. Well, I'm really glad that you're doing so much better. That's amazing. And I think it's really great that you're thinking about how this can affect your practice, because, of course, this is going to make a massive difference in the lives of your patients. Look into the studies and the work on just ketogenic diets in general. So carnivore diet is a ketogenic diet. I've heard it termed a plant-free ketogenic diet. And but there are literally thousands of high-quality studies on high-fat, meat-based ketogenic diets showing explicit benefits for many major medical issues. I mean, diabetes. I mean, that's in the guidelines now in Australia of using ketogenic diets to treat diabetes. So that's actually a standard of care. And in fact, it got upgraded to best practice this year, and because it works, And so immerse yourself in that literature. And you go to the YouTube channel Low Carb Down Under, where I have a few talks on. They have amazing lectures. It's a medical conference. It's CME CPD medical conference here in Australia, and they have some really amazing people talking at these things. And I'm not just saying that because I've spoken there. I'm the least of all of these videos. I've got a couple good ones. My Plants Are Trying to Kill You one that sort of went viral there, but it's they're amazing talks there. And so just immerse yourself in that. I mean, there's this whole world of medicine that we just weren't taught in medical school or residency because there's no product at the end of it, right? So it doesn't get into the curriculum. It's not, there's no drug reps or anything like that coming around telling us how great ketogenic diets are for childhood diabetes and things like that. Because there's no product, right? So only products have a marketing budget, and so we have to find this stuff ourselves. But it is there. It is absolutely there. And looking at Dr. Paul Mason has a ton of great talks there. There are cardiologists there. There are cardiothoracic surgeons. There are psychiatrists. There are pediatricians. There are many different top doctors giving excellent lectures, and there are plenty of studies available. So this is evidence-based medicine. It's just we have to go look for it. It's not going to be spoon-fed to us. So think about that. Immerse yourself in the literature and the data. And then, you can talk, I mean, we've been using ketogenic diets, for well over a century for epilepsy. In the late 1700s and 1800s and early 1900s, the only treatment for type 1 and type 2 diabetes was a ketogenic diet. That was the only thing that would keep people alive when they stopped making insulin. And then we got insulin and it was like, oh, okay, no problem anymore. We just forget about everything that we did for the last 150 years. But that was the treatment for diabetes for 150 years, was a ketogenic diet. And fasting has been used in medicinal context since there's records of it going back to like 500 BC. So these are working on the same principles. And also looking at childhood development. I mean, think about it. How many studies are there showing that if you disrupt the normal cholesterol metabolism of the brain, you'll get very serious neurological conditions and misdevelopment of the brain. Like you need cholesterol for the brain, and we're eating things that lower cholesterol and interrupt the normal cholesterol metabolism of the brain. And so obviously that's going to be a big deal when you're talking about the pediatric population. Kids need to be in ketosis, because they need ketones across the blood-brain barrier and reconstitute into fatty acids to build the physical structures of the brain. Also, the neocortex and 2/3 of the brain optimally primarily run on ketones. We learned this in biochemistry, at least those of us who had the undergraduate degree and took college level biochemistry, that when you have ketones available, even if you have an abundance of glucose, those parts of your brain will only run on the ketones. It's only when those ketones start dropping that you start replacing, filling in the gaps with glucose. And so it's very, very important for a kid to be into ketosis. Fetus is in ketosis in the womb, and breastfeeding children are in ketosis because they need to be in ketosis. And then we give them a bunch of sugary formula and nasty mushed peas with a ton of sugar, and it forces them out and they don't develop properly. We've seen the brain size in humans drop precipitously at about 10,000 years ago, dropped 11% for adult males, dropped 17% for adult females. And that's a developmental issue. That didn't take hundreds of years or thousands of years. That wasn't like an evolutionary process or anything like that. That's a developmental delay. And we saw this in real time with the Native Americans and Australians. They shrunk and their health got seriously affected. I don't know if they've ever done, head circumference and, calculating that. But, if you look at the skulls of pre and post agricultural humans, massive difference. That's a developmental issue. And so part of that is that you're not in ketosis and you're not getting the right nutrients up to the brain. So we have all that information. Like, we know that happens. And of course, that's the most important in a pediatric population. If you have kids with autoimmune issues, they're getting rashes, they're getting sick all the time, God forbid they're getting diabetes, these are interventions that are very important to think about. And you talk to the parents about it, you get informed consent, say, listen, this is something, that could help, and this could help in these conditions and X, Y, and Z. And, it's not going to hurt them. Meat's not going to hurt anyone. And eliminating out carbs and being ketosis certainly won't hurt them, because kids are supposed to be in ketosis so their brains can grow. And you're not missing anything by cutting out vegetables. In fact, you're gaining a lot by cutting out vegetables. You're getting rid of these anti-nutrients that block out the absorption of the nutrients, even in meat. You're stopping the digestion. You're blocking protease and lipase and stopping your body from breaking down the nutrients that you need. Fiber will bind to bile and eliminate that, so you can't absorb the amount of fat that you need and your brain needs, and so on and so on and so on. So, then you can start, once you get confident enough that this is not going to hurt anyone, first do no harm. Meat does not do harm. And you've seen the data in the literature and on ketogenic diets. Carnivore diet is a ketogenic diet. It's a plant-free ketogenic diet, which has that next layer of benefit, because now you're getting rid of these toxins and these anti-nutrients, and even fiber. It's an anti-nutrient. It blocks out 30% absorption, or up to 30% of the absorption of the food that you're eating. So that's fine if you're eating garbage, and you don't absorb 30% of the garbage. But what if you're not eating garbage? Well, then you're blocking out 30% absorption of things that are good. And so, once you understand that, and you sort of, and you really, you've seen it in yourself, but now, looking into the literature, and once you're confident enough and you start talking to patients about it, you will see results like you've never seen before in your entire life. And, that's why I use diet and lifestyle as a major part of my practice, because it works, and we have medicines that can fill in the gaps, but so many things just go away and stop being a problem long before you ever get to medications. And so, I still will prescribe things for people, but the amount that I have to do, it's vanishingly small compared to what, people would normally have to do, or what, I would have done historically, because you're just like, oh, here's this problem, here's this pill. That's how we're taught. but now you change their diet and their lifestyle, and all these things just improve. And I always say, like, look, I'd rather not do medications. Why don't we see how you go? And they're feeling better and they're doing better, and you're months on and you're seeing their blood work all improve and their blood pressure improve, diabetes go away and their autoimmunity goes away. Like, okay, yeah, we don't even need to start medication. Someone's really bad, then okay, you get them on the medication while they're transitioning, but then you can deprescribe. And so I think you'll find that once you are confident enough to make that step, you will see better results than you've ever seen in your entire career. And that's really exciting, because it's pretty amazing. And like my friend Dr. Gary Fettke says, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like this is there, and you can't stop recommending this to people because it works, and it works better than anything else we're doing. So it's great to hear. Thank you for sharing that, and glad to have you on Team Carnivore. And I'm really looking forward to hearing about your experiences with your patients in the future, because I'm sure it'll be great. Also, we'll need to cut off the super chats because because I've only got about 20 minutes before my next interview starts. So I'll have to sort of do these as quickly as possible. But yeah, won't be able to take any more super chats past the ones that are here. And if worse comes to worse, we may have to save some of the super chats and then do them next time. So Nav, thank you very much for the super chat. I eat when hungry on Carnivore as recommended by others for healing purposes. I'm doing 3 meals because I'm usually hungry 3 times a day. Would it be problematic to do OMAD or CHUMAD if I'm still healing? No, not necessarily, as long as you're getting enough. If you eat fatty meat until it stops tasting good, that's the key. You want to get to the point that you have a bite that just sort of tastes like cardboard, and that's your body telling you, yeah, we don't need this anymore. We're good. Often people don't need to eat more than once or twice a day. If your body really needs those nutrients and really wants to put on healthy, lean body mass, then it may be that you need to eat more than that, but maybe not. So just listen to your body. If you want to, try just eating 1 big meal a day, you just need to make sure you're eating enough, because it's a lot easier to undereat on a carnivore diet than overeat on a carnivore diet, because at a certain point it stops tasting good and you just really don't enjoy it, and you have to force feed yourself. Okay, don't do that. Just eat as it's enjoyable and let your body tell you what to do. And if you're only eating meat and only drinking water, you can actually listen to that, as long as you're not on medications like corticosteroids and things like that will screw with your hunger signals. Oh, dairy will make you feel like you're hungrier than you are and cause you to overeat. So just avoid those things, just meat and water, and you should be fine. Just really quickly, from Maca Blondie, are any good carnivore bars available in Australia? Well, the carnivore bar isn't, but looking in with about seeing if we can get that distributed here in Australia. And there are a couple other meat bars. I know that the Chief Bar, they're making a carnivore version of the Chief Bar that doesn't have any spices or seasonings or anything like that. And I think it's going to be out now, or if not, then soon. So that's an option as well. But I'm trying to see if we can get the carnivore bar and other sort of options here in Australia as well. But that's a work in progress. Nav, thank you very much for the super chat again. That's very kind of you. Primary care provider said he won't order certain blood work tests when I asked for it, for things like fasting insulin and more, which were recommended by you and others because insurance won't approve. It annoyed me. How do I get around this? Look, that actually is the thing. Some of these things you might just have to pay for out of your own pocket. If the insurance won't pay for it, then they won't pay for it. But it can still be useful. You want to have that on the lower end, and if you have this massively elevated insulin, show that you have insulin resistance. That can be a good piece of information. Leptin is another one. Leptin takes a lot longer to normalize than insulin does. But at the end of the day, if you're on a ketogenic carnivore diet, so a plant-free ketogenic diet, your insulin is going to come down. And so it's a good tool to assess people that are eating any old which way. And then you can use that and say, like, listen, you're massively insulin resistant. This causes a lot of problems because insulin affects over 100 different processes in your body, and this is a big deal. We need to get this down. The only way to get it down is a ketogenic diet. And so, that's what that's used for. But if you're already doing the intervention, your insulin is going to be normal eventually anyway. And usually, well, it usually takes a few months for people that are insulin resistant. If people are exquisitely insulin resistant, it could take several months, but it will come down. And so I don't think you absolutely have to have a fasting insulin test. It's a good piece of information, and it's also very reassuring because you look at this and, okay, my insulin is 36, and now 6 months later it's 5. Okay, well, that's great. It's a proof of concept that this is actually working, but you're gonna get down to a good healthy level eventually anyway. So it just depends. If you want it for reassurance and just to be able to track things, then paying for it out of pocket might be worth it. Probably not that much, $10-20 maybe. I don't know, maybe not even that much. You can check your leptin while you're at it, and if you have leptin resistance, it's very difficult to lose weight typically. But you don't strictly need it as long as you don't need it for motivation to stay on track. If you're just happy to just keep going with it, they're all going to come down and normalize anyway. If you want to see that in real time, then you may need to pay for it out of pocket because, the insurance may not cover it, which is stupid because, fasting insulin is way more important than just blood sugar alone, because your blood sugar can be completely normal, but you can have insulin resistance, and fasting insulin be elevated for 10-15 years before your blood sugar ever comes up. So it's catching it early, a lot earlier. You're catching diabetes a lot earlier. And I would consider that really pre-diabetes. And then diabetes is when your blood sugar starts coming up, but they call that pre-diabetes. And then when it's floridly elevated, then you get full diabetes. I think that's not quite right, but that is what it's termed as. But it is important to check fasting insulin, even if you have normal blood sugar, right? But if you're on a ketogenic diet, it's going to get better anyway. If you're on a ketogenic carnivore diet, it's going to get even better, even faster. And so, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if you want it for your own reassurance, then, I would look into, private testing centers that you can pay to get whatever test you want. Chris, thank you very much for the super chat. Total cholesterol 211, HDL 42, triglycerides 156, LDL 139. Should I be concerned? Doctor is hounding me about a statin. Well, there are over 100 different particulates of LDL, and even the ones that are damaged, SDLDL, the damaged glycated oxidized ones that could cause an issue, maybe, or they could be indicating that there is damage going on in your body that is damaging the LDL and also damaging other things that could precipitate atherosclerotic plaques. I think it's probably the latter, that the SDLDL doesn't cause anything, that it's just it's a symptom. It's not the disease. It's the smoke. It's not the fire. It's a sign that something's going wrong, but it's not the cause of it going wrong, if that makes sense. Also, if you have all this SDLDL and damaged particulates, statins don't reduce those. Statins prevent your body from making the large, buoyant, healthy LDL molecules in the first place. So, is that really of benefit? I don't think that it is. It's also treating a problem that it hasn't never been proven to exist, because we've never proven that there's a cause and effect relationship between any form of LDL or ApoB or total cholesterol or anything else and cardiovascular disease. In fact, the only experimental studies that have ever been done on the subject have shown the opposite, have shown that you improve patient health. You get improved outcomes with higher animal fat and cholesterol, and so when they lower saturated fat or lower animal fat, replacing it with unsaturated vegetable oils, lower LDL cholesterol, in 3 of these studies that conferred no benefit to cardiovascular disease. And in the 2 larger, better designed studies, actually lowering fatty or animal fat and cholesterol actually caused more heart attacks and strokes and more deaths from heart attacks and strokes. So it's treating a problem that doesn't exist. I wouldn't worry about your LDL. Typically, population studies show that the higher your LDL and total cholesterol, the higher your life expectancy is. There are also a lot of there's a lot of suggestions that if you have cholesterol under 200, you actually are worse off. You're more susceptible to infectious diseases, cancers, other sorts of very serious issues. Higher LDL is associated with lower rates of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and dementia. It's also associated with lower rates of heart attacks and strokes, in fact. It's just that, they try to sort of hide that and or lie about it and change the data around like they did with the Framingham study. They misrepresented the data from the Framingham study. American Heart Association misrepresented it and said that, higher cholesterol equals higher cardiovascular disease mortality. In fact, it was a lower cholesterol correlated with higher cardiovascular disease mortality rates. So, that was a lie. As you go, it looks like you're probably early on in a well, I'm assuming you're on a carnivore diet, or why else are you here, asking me. But if you're not on a carnivore diet, you should be. And what that will do is it will raise your LDL, your HDL, and it will continue to lower your triglycerides. And then you'll get that ratio of HDL to triglycerides will be more favorable. So you don't want more than double your HDL in triglycerides. And eventually, if you stay on a ketogenic carnivore diet, your HDL will eclipse your triglycerides and actually have higher levels of HDL than triglycerides and be extremely low risk of heart disease, regardless of what your LDL is. So, yeah. So good luck with that. But no, I don't get concerned over that. My main thing would be your HDL and triglycerides. I want to see your triglycerides down further and your HDL up more, and being on a ketogenic carnivore diet, it will. Okay. Steve Large, thank you very much for the super chat. Carnivore, 285 days, 1 meal a day, and loving it. How can I find the right fat balance without overdoing it? Because that's a mistake I don't want to make again. Thanks, Doc. Yeah, I mean, just small, minor changes. Make sure you're not drinking coffee, tea, taking magnesium, artificial sweeteners, or things like metformin, or can all cause a laxative effect. And so it's more dramatic when you're not eating fiber, because fiber actually slows things down. It does not speed things up. And so if you eat, really overdo it on the fat, you're going to get explosive diarrhea. So don't do that. Just slowly increase the amount of fat. But the thing is if you're not taking any of those things and you're only eating fatty meat and only drinking water, if you're eating enough fat, you'll have soft stools. If you're not eating enough fat, you'll get hard stools. Okay, so if you're getting hard stools, just slowly, just marginally increase the amount of fat until you start getting soft stools, and then keep it there. Through taste, people can start figuring out how much is right for them, and they start, coordinating that with their stools. Dairy can be very constipative, and other things can have more of a laxative effect. So, you have to balance these things out. But if you just meat and water, no dairy or coffee or tea or anything else, then just, go by your stools. And if you're having soft stools, you're done. You're there. It's all right. You increase the fat a little bit and it starts getting a bit loose. Okay, pull back a bit. If you have big changes, then you'll get, big changes in the amount of fat that you're eating. You can get, big changes in your bowel motions. But, if you do it slowly, you should be fine. Mitch, thank you very much for the super chat. My brother has developed immunity problems from bee stings. Have you heard of this as a carnivore? Good. Well, I mean, I assuming what you're meaning is like a hypersensitivity reaction to bee stings, like they're allergic to bee stings, which of course is very dangerous. I don't know if a carnivore diet is going to help that. I mean, people have self-reported. I mean, I've certainly noticed myself that, like my asthma and my reactive sort of asthma and allergies have gotten a lot better. But that doesn't mean that, if you have an allergy to a bee sting, that, you shouldn't still walk around with an EpiPen. So, I can't tell you one way or the other. Unfortunately, I don't know anybody who has, recovered from like a severe anaphylactic sort of allergy to something on a carnivore diet doesn't mean that they haven't. But, most times when people have a severe anaphylactic reaction to something, even when they go carnivore, even if it did help it, they're not going to just go out and test it just to see, because that's a bit foolhardy. So it would have to be sort of an incidental, like, oh my God, I got stung by a bee, and they look at that, it's fine. But I don't know about that either. I haven't come across anybody like that. So, hopefully this helps modulate, people's immune systems a lot better. It could very well be that it helps with these hypersensitivities. These hypersensitivities, peanut allergies and food allergies and things like that have just gotten worse and worse in recent decades. And that could very well be part of this whole, chronic disease pandemic that's afflicting the world, that is ultimately almost exclusively related to what we're eating or not eating. So it could very well, but I don't actually know one way or the other. But still be careful, be cautious, and but hopefully it doesn't have any problem if he ever gets stung by a bee again. Good luck. James Joseph Finn, thank you very much for the super chat. Greetings, Doc. Thank you for all you do. Any idea why I have a wicked leg cramps without supplementing with magnesium, eating nothing but beef, eggs, and butter? It's almost always dehydration. You can check your magnesium, but check your erythrocyte levels, your RBC, red blood cell levels of magnesium. That's really the only one that's accurate. Whenever a lab does this with normal magnesium, it doesn't do the red cell magnesium, but then they'll come back and do both, because they saw the request better. It may align, but often it doesn't. So magnesium works in the cells, and so getting serum levels of magnesium is really not helpful. But it's almost always dehydration. It could be magnesium, but just check your magnesium. And if you're supplementing with magnesium and that's helping it, okay. But are you drinking a lot of water with that magnesium? Maybe. So try upping your water, see what that does. Check your magnesium. If your magnesium is very low, on your RBC levels of magnesium, okay, well then you need to get higher density nutrition. So you need to add some liver, organs, things like that are going to have plenty of these micronutrients, and you could very well benefit from supplementing with magnesium. It can take months and months to get your magnesium up to good levels when you're really deficient. And if you're drinking coffee or tea or anything like that, that will strip out magnesium out of your body. Caffeine alone will strip magnesium out of your body, and it'll certainly block you from absorbing it. So when people take magnesium or medications or other supplements and they drink coffee or tea around the same time, they don't absorb hardly any of it. And so, it's, something that you need to be, very, very strict with. And it sounds like you are, eating just beef, eggs, and butter. But some people say, I'm only eating beef, eggs, and butter. And they say, oh, do you drink coffee? Oh, well, I do drink coffee. So, you always have to ask. So any sort of coffee, tea, anything like that, anything with caffeine as well, cut it out. And that doesn't mean that decaf is any better, because it will still block out and strip out zinc, magnesium, and other nutrients. But the caffeine alone will do it. So caffeine tablets, will still cause a problem with magnesium. So just cut all that out, drink a lot more water, and see how you go. And if you need to take magnesium for a while, it may take a couple months to get your levels up, but you shouldn't have to forever. Mav Demon, thank you very much for the super chat. Or Diamond, can carnivore help with an inguinal hernia? Inguinal hernia is a structural defect, and so it's not very likely that that's going to sort of close that defect. And I've never seen it. I would doubt that it ever would. Never say never, but I don't think so. It can help with the pain, and sometimes those can be pretty painful. But no, almost certainly you'll need to get surgery for that if you want to get that repaired. But carnivore diet's going to help you be as healthy as you can with an inguinal hernia, and it will certainly help you recover from the surgery much more easily, because even just higher protein diets, adding in more protein in the diet, that's been long shown to improve surgical recovery, healing, wound healing, things like that. So, being carnivore while you go through surgery like that is going to help you as well. But no, I don't think it's going It's not going to repair like a physical defect, like an inguinal hernia. Some things it can heal. I mean, a lot of people have found that their joint pains and things like that are a lot better. But is that because the cartilage is regrowing? Probably not. It's because the expression of pain is going down because the inflammation is coming down. So, but a lot of people do heal, especially like neurological issues. People have gotten more strength post-stroke, even years down the line, by going on a ketogenic carnivore diet. Like Dave Mack, he recovered from a stroke 30 years ago. He had stroke 30 years ago, and then 30 years later goes carnivore, and in a few months his neurological issues improved dramatically. But no, I don't think it's going to get rid of an inguinal hernia. I think you'll have to get surgery if you want to get that fixed. And do be careful, because if those get incarcerated, you get like hernia that pops out and it gets stuck and you can't push it back down. It can cut off the blood supply and it can actually kill that loop of bowel or whatever came through. And that's an emergency. Then you're in a lot of trouble. And that's, that's life threatening, So, work with your doctor, work with your medical team to, to understand, what the risk factors are and the warning signs to look out for. Basically, if it gets stuck and it really hurts, you need to go, and you're not able to push it down in, you need to go see a doctor ASAP and get them to look at it. And, but yeah, we'll work with your doctor on, when and if surgery would be appropriate, and good luck with that. Okay, low carb, low drama. We'll end here with you. Thank you so much for the very generous super chat. That's very kind of you. Hi, Dr. Chaffee. A close acquaintance has been diagnosed with leukemia. I'm very sorry to hear that. Her prognosis is 3 months. Jesus. Okay. Your thoughts on whether a ketogenic carnivore diet would be beneficial in this liquid cancer, like with solid cancers? Thank you for all that you do. Yeah, I absolutely do. Cancer is a really, really nasty illness. And even if we do everything that we know that is beneficial, so we're doing, ketogenic, we're staying away from different things that can, feed the cancers, we're limiting glutamine or even interrupting glutamine with different, chemotherapy agents or medications, and we're using chemo and radiation, all these sorts of things, people still die. It's a very serious illness. It's, things have gone, seriously wrong previously to then culminate into cancer. And once you have cancer, it's a very difficult situation to get away from. It's not just like, oh, this is what it is, and you just snap your fingers and it goes away. We're not there yet. Maybe in the future, but we're certainly not there yet. And but no, I 100% think that a ketogenic carnivore diet would help, because it's still a cancer cell, and those cancer cells still require 400 times the amount of glucose that other cells do. And so, I've heard someone say that before, that liquid cancers, in the blood don't act the same as a solid tumor. Like, why would that be the case? I mean, they still require the same amount of energy. And also it is a solid tumor that sort of disseminates, because they have problems in your bone marrow. You're producing cancer cells in your bone marrow, and you're just pumping out, these little damaged cancer cells that are going everywhere, but it's starting in your bone marrow, right? Because that's what's generating those cells in the first place. So it actually is a solid tumor that's just basically metastasizing like hell all the time. And so it's the same principles. These cells still require 400 times the amount of glucose. They need a certain amount of glutamine, and they will respond in various ways to chemotherapy and radiation. There's bone marrow transplants. That's, I don't know why that's not an option. You have someone who's 3 months, they'll be high on the list for getting a bone marrow transplant. And, they might be able to find like a relative that would be an adequate donor. I mean, that's a cure, for leukemia. But in the meantime, she can go on a ketogenic carnivore diet. And I do think that will help her. It'll make her healthier in a lot of ways, at least just get her basic nutrition, something that she needs, and get rid of all these things that can hold her back. And then being in ketosis, that helps while you're going through chemo and radiation. It can help sensitize the cancer cells to chemo and radiation. It helps protect your cells, your healthy cells, from chemo and radiation. So obviously a very good thing. And then, of course, you're limiting the amount of energy available to those cells. And so they tend to die out or at least have more of a difficult time reproducing. I 100% think that this is something that would help. I don't know how much it will help, but I strongly feel that this is something that's worth trying. It's not going to cause harm. First, do no harm. Meat's not going to cause harm. Being ketosis is not going to cause harm. Not eating things that are poisonous and harmful to you, certainly not going to cause harm, aka plants. And being in ketosis, is going to limit the amount of energy available, protect the body in a number of different ways. And so I think it's well worth trying. I can't tell you how much it's going to help, but I can confidently say it won't hurt, and should help for all of those different reasons. There are very, very good reasons why it would help, and no reason why it would hurt. And so, why the hell not? Good luck to her. I hope that she does well. I hope that she does at least give it a try and see how it goes, because I think it would really help her, and hopefully it helps enough, and at least give her a lot more time than just 3 months, because that's very, that's very dire. And, at the very least, maybe it can give her a few more months, a few more years with her family. Maybe not, though. You just have to see. There are people that have put their cancers into remission doing this as an adjunct to their standard of care, so even better, hopefully that is the case. There are a lot of factors that go into this, that go into this. And so, we just have to see. It's just one of those things. We just have to try it and see. But I think it's well worth the try, and good luck to her. Please do let me know if she ends up giving it a try and how she does. So I'd be very, very interested in that. Okay. Thanks everybody. An hour goes really quick. I'm just like, so usually these 3-hour marathon things that an hour is just doesn't seem like that long. But it has been over an hour. So I'll need to go at this point because I've got another meeting starting 6 minutes ago. So unfortunately I have to head off, but I'll try to do this again, be back again on, I think in 2 days time. I'll have to double check, but I think we'll be able to come back in 2 days time, and we'll see how things work. I may switch to just doing one big YouTube live once a week, and maybe try to stick one in here and there, but we'll at least keep it at least one a week going forward. And but it may be my Friday, America's Thursday, because I'll have some more work stuff on Wednesdays for me. But we'll see how it goes. I'll let you guys all know. And thank you all for showing up. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for the questions. And I will see you next time. Chemical imbalance in the brain. Well, maybe, but why is it there in the first place? Answer that. Well, it's genetic. Well, no, because they weren't born with it. They developed it over time. And so, and even with genetic issues, when you have these concordant studies with identical twins,